Hello friends, today we will discuss a sequential container vector. So vector is a dynamic array. It's a dynamic array. How to define vectors? The first is the class name, then second is the template argument, which can be either be a primitive type or a custom class which you have created. Okay, and then the variable name followed by that. How can you modify this container? So there are four major which generally used modifiers are pushback, popback, assign and clear. So pushback appends an element to the end of the container. Let's say this is the container, then and a new element comes, then it will be appended to the end of this vector container. And popback just removes this last element. Assign, it replaces the old value of the container with new one. If you go by syntax, it will be assign, then size, first argument is size, and then is the constructor. And if it is a primitive type, you can directly pass the value. Okay, so by this way you can modify the size of the already initialized vector container. Clear, it removes all the values of the vector container. So in other words, it's bring back it to the initial state of just definition of the vector. How to access elements? First is the overloaded square bracket operator, which can be used as similar as the array, which we normal arrays which we use to access element. At is same as finding the element at the ith position. So front is giving the reference to the first element. Back is the giving it gives the reference to the last element. Now iterators. To go through the vector, we have three different types of iterators. All are random iterators. First is begin to end. What begin to end is, let's say this is my container, and this is my first value, and this is my last value. So begin points to this element and end points to the next location of the last element. R begin and R end is reverse of begin end. So the R begin points at this and R end points to something next to the last element. For this last element will be the first. C begin, C end is the constant iterators similar to begin and end, except that you cannot modify the contents through this iterator. Next, how to find the size and capacity. So size is size gives current number of elements in a vector. Capacity is how much space is allocated for this vector. Space allocated, but it doesn't mean that you can only it doesn't mean that number of elements can be at max capacity. If the number of elements greater than capacity, if you want to push more than the capacity, then the size of the vector will be, capacity of vector will be changed. Generally it is multiplied by 2. Okay, empty, just check whether this container is empty or not. Okay, let's see one use case of vector. So one use case is adjacency list. In adjacency list, you want the size of each row should be different. Like for the first row, the size is 5, second it's 2, and third is 3. So you can define as vector of integer. So this vector will be this part, and outer vector will be for this part. So you can use assign function. This is the outer number of rows, and this is for the inner construction. And you can use pushback for this, pushing the elements and having dynamic length of each row. Thank you.